This video has taken a long time to come to fruition. I've wanted to make it for, well, it's been about 2 years and 2 months since the drawing that you're seeing on screen now took place. So I've been wanting to make this video for at least a couple of years. So the reason it's taken that long is because of it took a while to get all of the footage together, because there's a lot of footage that's going to be included in this video, and also I've had other jobs to do. There's been things in life that interrupt, you know how it goes, but that's what's delayed this for so long. This is the first video for my YouTube channel which will feature my older brother, only briefly, but you will get a little introduction to who he is, and he'll feature again in the near future. So, leveling up. This is something which my brother told me I need to do in order to achieve this work that I'm going to be showing to you. And how do you do that? Some people say it's practice. I personally disagree that practice is the way to level up. I think practice alone isn't nearly enough to help you push to a place where you've truly discovered a new vista upon which your drawing or art making can sit. And this is because I've witnessed people who draw every day, every week, for months, for years, and they've just plateaued. There is no growth, there's no development. Practice alone is not enough. You need to really have something to push you beyond practice. You need patience, because it can't happen in an instant. You have to really learn and do additional work in order to glean insights beyond what you already know as a person engaging with the world, as an artist describing your experiences and your inventions and creations on the picture plane. So this is what I tried to do, and a lot of help which I had was the guidance from my older brother, who's an experienced artist, a professional painter for most of his life, and I used that feedback to push me to another level of art making. Every day I would make loads, paint pages of these drawings, and then send the images to him for his approval and to get his feedback on how he thinks the standard was being met, if he thought it was being met. And we also discussed certain references, not only the references that I would use to draw, but also references of work that I would try and aspire to make drawings like. He sent me his drawings from a sketchbook saying something like this, but it doesn't have to be as detailed. And he wanted proportional accuracy, he wanted movement, flow, naturalism, but it didn't have to be overly elaborate. It didn't have to be especially descriptive for every detail. That wasn't the important aspect of this. And also we had references for how to then translate the drawings which I had into a digital image that I could send to him, and then we could start to plot out how this would end up, because all of this drawing was a job that I was doing for my brother, but I'll discuss that later. The point is, this is how you take seriously the concept of leveling up your art making and really put the hours in, truly focus your efforts and energy into a project that will make you grow as an artist, understand more as a person, and become this more enlightened human being as someone who observes the world and can communicate thoughts and ideas to others using a pencil, a paintbrush, or whatever medium you choose. This is the key to that growth, in my view. Okay, this is a Patreon video about automatic drawing. So if you join my Patreon, you will see this video and many others like it. But that's what I'm showing you on the screen now, is a video that I made about a drawing process called automatic drawing. It explains how and why this is a useful way to make art. There are lots of different ways of making art and using different tools, different thought processes, and expressing your ideas, and this is one of them. You can join now for $2 a month and start using these techniques. It's not much to ask. I know that it's too much for some people, so I appreciate that it's not for everyone, but if you can afford it, it will really help this channel. You'll also be a patron of the arts, which sounds posh, and there's nothing quite as prestigious as a posh patron of the arts. So if you are able to do that, then I really would appreciate it. There's also animation, exhibition, and behind the scenes videos. Loads to check out on the channel. I've been making it for quite a while, so I upload a video every month, and I'm going to start creating a tier system with different exclusive access videos. I hope to see you there soon. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. First of all, obviously, this video is mainly focusing on drawing. So let's start with how I started with the growth of my drawing ability. Now, there are several types of drawing which I've done throughout my life. There's observational drawing. I'll give you an example. I started drawing aside from the school years, because you don't really count those, that's play unless you really took it seriously back then. I didn't take that seriously, my brother did, so I departed from art making for the majority of my life and returned to it in 2014. What happened then was I started to draw every time, every opportunity I could. Every time I had the ability to have a pencil and a sketchbook in my hand, or a pen and a piece of paper, whatever I had, I would use that to help me explore, to play and to discover. Experimentation and discovery is the essence of your voice in art making. You need that spontaneity and that freedom to find your own vision. But it starts off from the fundamentals. So I would draw from observation. I would see people in the street and I would draw them. Vehicles like motorbikes or cars. Anything, buildings, all types of objects, animals and situations that would contribute to my education as an artist. Observation is one of the greatest forms of knowledge to understand how things work, how things move, how things fall, how shapes affect other things. Like, okay, that sounds quite abstract. For example, clothing. To understand fabrics and textiles means that you understand the form underneath the textiles dictates how they fall and how they sit on the frame of the body, just as the skin sits on the muscle and bone and tissue beneath the skin. And understanding these things to a greater extent informs your drawing to the extent that you will then be a better art maker. But observation is only one part of art making or drawing. Imagination, to me, is a very important aspect of art making. Not for everyone. I've talked to a lot of artists. My main job is to interview artists. I've interviewed over 100 artists easily, and not every artist wants to draw from imagination or paint from a point where there's no reference. Some artists swear that you need reference, and that's true for some. But we all know that imagination can really let you create something which comes out of nowhere and brings this fascination of how something from nothing can be the most satisfying and fulfilling image generation play that you can engage with. If you're not aware, one of the great influences on my work is Kim Jung-gi. Sadly passed away a couple of years ago. An amazing person who I had the fortunate opportunity to meet in 2016. Lovely person and an amazing artist. He is known from drawing from imagination, but that imagination has been informed by years and years of work from observation. When he was enlisted in the army, he would draw soldiers, and he was known for doing that and would do that constantly. He is an incredibly accomplished, or was an incredibly accomplished draftsman, and that doesn't come from nowhere. You have to work for things like that. But then as soon as you understand perspective, proportion and light and form and edges, that's it. You can play with all kinds of things. All sorts of different shapes and designs can intersect. Negative space can play a huge role in how you compose a scene. These are what make your art making really important and really stand out. Now, there are certain things which also can help and can lift up your art making, and that is master's studies. Master's studies are a really important aspect of an artist's growth. Not every artist engages with this practice, but I highly recommend you consider trying master's studies. The idea is that you take an image from the past, from someone who you consider one of the great artists. It could be anyone. It could be a great manga artist, or it could be a Renaissance artist, or anyone that you think has done a brilliant piece of work. And it doesn't have to be in the same materials as they used. For example, I did a Turner painting called Fisherman at Sea in pencil, and Claude Monet I did in pencil as well. His piece, A Snowy Landscape at Twilight. And both of those master studies really taught me a lot about art making. For example, with the Turner piece, I learned that his painting, Fisherman at Sea, became very abstract when you started to try to copy what he had achieved in these raging seas, in the waters. To try to describe this movement, this motion, and the volume of water with tone means that you've got something which no longer becomes a figurative or representational form. Instead, it becomes this mass of dark, mid-tone and light. And as soon as you can understand the interplay between these elements, you can really capitalize on how to manipulate the viewer's senses, interpretations, and understandings of what they're reading on the page. It's a really powerful lesson to learn. Snowy Landscape at Twilight by Claude Monet taught me about how without the really dark shadow and the really light lights, you can find this rich interplay between the mid-tone values of that spectrum of dark and light. So if there isn't the dramatic highs and lows, it's all the medium, then you rely on the mark making and the description that you can render using the tools in your hand. So with the pencil, I would have to snake some of the marks in order to describe the foliage and make sure that the tonal values are subtle but describe a plane of the landscape clearly that can be interpreted and read and understood by the viewer. It's masterful work that Monet created, just as it is with Turner's. And in order to copy these things, you have to really look carefully at what the artist has achieved. I've done this with more modern pieces of artwork, and you feel as though you look at a piece of artwork and you look at it closely, you look at the colour choices and the character and the composition, and you feel as though you understand it. But as soon as you need to copy it, you're looking at it far closer than you ever will have before. It's very similar to drawing from life. Whether this is life drawing, still life, landscape, anything that you are actually observing in real life will force you to observe it far more keenly than you ever will without this engagement of the art making. That does inform your knowledge from that point on. So these are things which are fundamental to the artist's practice, and there is no leveling up without earning these skills and pushing yourself to really try to understand and describe different objects and scenarios in the world with truth and with accuracy. There is room to play, but when people say there are no rules to making art, that's not really true. There are loads of rules to making art. It's just that once you learn them, you then have the ability to bend those rules and to break them. If you don't learn the rules, you don't know if you're abiding by them or if you're bending them and breaking them. You've no clue why certain things work and others don't. So that's why the rules are very important in art. They are there, learn them, and then do with them as you wish. Now the next thing which is really important is that this job, it was work. This is not a hobby. This was paid work that I was doing. So this is again a contributing factor to why this was not simply a playful practice that I was doing in a sketchbook. This needed to be at a certain level. This needed to be good drawing of certain characters and groups of people that made sense and would contribute to the outcome of the job. So it had pressure to it. It had payment attached to it. There is an expectation of what you will deliver. This helps. Not everyone needs this and not everyone likes it. It's commission work, it's freelance work. But this is what will push you with this pressure into a different place in your mind and in your art making. You will then focus and hone your skills in order to ensure that what you are doing is professional. And it's going to be clean. It's going to be better than what it would have been were you free to do as you wish, let yourself off for certain things that weren't as good. They have to be up to standard. That was the important part. If it's a job, then there's an expectation of professionalism. There is an understanding that you're taking this seriously and you are committed to this just as the client is. Now in this case the client is my brother. That doesn't make it easier. That means that he is far more casual and easy to criticise the work and to tell me this isn't good enough, you've got to do this again. Thankfully that didn't happen during this job, but there was a dialogue as far as keeping the standard up, what is working and what is not working. Certain things like when I would draw groups of people, but then one figure would be completely obscured, where all you could see is the elbow and the bottom of a jacket. You couldn't see the head, you couldn't see hands, you couldn't really see much of the form. That's no use. That can't be a contribution to the workload. I needed clear characters interacting and creating a narrative for this work. So that was the focus. Now, part of that means that I have to use a comparison, and the comparison is with professional work. You look at what the standard of work is for a very high level artist. You don't copy what they've done, but you then think my work has to be as good or very close to as good as that finish. I need to ensure that my work has this cleanness and this direct understanding to the forms, to the figures, to the composition. If you can, you try to exceed what you can compare your work with. If you feel like you can look at a professional artist's work and then tell yourself, I can honestly do better than that, that's not unrealistic. It's very possible you can, and you should strive to do that. Sometimes when you strive to do better, you do almost as good as what they've done, and that is easily enough when it comes to leveling up. That is all part of it. You aim incredibly high, and then what you get will be a much better product than you have ever achieved before. So it has to be, the outcome has to be served by what it is that you're trying to achieve. It can't be unrealistic. You can't think I'm going to be groundbreaking with the art making. I mean, you can try this, but I don't think it's very beneficial. It would put unrealistic expectations upon yourself, and you may never finish the work. You have to say, I can do better than that because I know how they've done that, and I know that the style that they've done, I feel, has several aspects that I could criticize because I don't think it was up to scratch. That is reasonable, and that you can work with. But to think that you're then going to break ground on how art gets made is too much in my view. You should never stunt yourself with the expectation of something which is going to be revolutionary to creativity. All you want to do is serve yourself, serve the client, and really push to the point where you're not only happy with what you've done, but you're proud of yourself for really working very hard and putting a lot of yourself into the work. That's the important part. It really does have to be a big effort to make sure that what you have is something which you are proud to present and you can defend. But if it still gets criticised, that should be accepted. You should be fine with that. Criticism is healthy, and if you trust the person who is critiquing your work, that's only going to strengthen what you do. And it's really important to listen to that criticism and to let that inform your next render or your next draft of the work. Your mark making should improve based on critique, not devolve. So make sure that you utilize the honesty that can be offered in freelance work like this job I'm showing you here. It really is a bulk workload which will either stand up or it will collapse. And thankfully I had the ability to send work to my brother really regularly and get that feedback, because without that, if it was a client who I didn't know, I would have to do the work and just trust that it's up to standard. So that is a bit scarier when you don't know the person. That was the benefit that I had with this job. I could send it to him, he would say to me yay or nay, and then it would move forward. Now, the way this work was heading was that it needed to be rendered on the computer. So all of this was being drawn so that it can then be scanned or photographed, put onto a computer program, something which is very similar to Photoshop, even though I don't have Photoshop. I used to, I no longer do. And then using a kind of grayscale, but on this occasion it was a kind of purpley blue that I was using, and this was based on a reference as well that I used, which I mentioned earlier, with the references of the sketchbook that I was using to make sure that my drawings were similar to my brother's sketchbook drawings, but not described as thoroughly. Similarly, the reference for the transcription of the drawing onto the digital format was one where I could see how shadow puddles were described on the computer and how tonal values would sit with each other and how to actually select those colours in order to utilise a kind of basic value scale, so that you had about 5 or 6 different values that you would use to describe the skin tone, the clothing, the light and the shadow. Keep it really simple. Sometimes it wasn't even 6. I think it was keeping it really simple so that it could then be taken further beyond the digital form, which I will get to in a moment. But here we are. We're at the end of the drawing stage. This is what the pages look like and how they came out, and it'll show you here the 4 pages that I had with the finish of this work and all of the characters that I'd been developing up until this point. So here we are. Here are the 4 pages that I was left with. Now it may not seem like a lot, 4 pages, but all of these characters will now be put onto the computer and will need to be rendered digitally. And that's what this stage is. This is the point where they're brought to life, where all of that work of trying to find the character from the reference into the drawing has to then translate directly into a digital form. Simplified again, because drawing is one thing where you're trying to arrange tonal values to simplify the structure of the character, but then on the computer it has to be crushed down again, because you don't have a pencil and the pressure to then say this will be darker, this will be lighter. The computer says it is this colour or it is that colour. There's no pressure sensitivity when it comes to this rendering, so the important part was getting this aspect right. And it was enjoyable, because seeing these characters develop the way that it was would inform me on whether or not this worked, and I feel as though it did. I was feeling confident that this was some were really clear and were obvious contenders for the concept for this project, which I should really try and get into briefly. So the concept for this project is football supporters throughout the years, from the 50s to the 70s and 80s to modern day. And the idea is that on these 2 walls outside of a football stadium, where the fans queue up to get in to watch the match, there will be this line of people going from the olden days, from the 50s to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And you're seeing the fashion and the groupings of people inform and dictate how that will be interpreted by the people who will look at the piece on the wall. So this is going to go on the wall in the very end, and all of these characters that I'm putting onto the computer is so that I can send them to my brother. He can then go to the site, prime the wall, and make these characters come to life outside of this football ground. Now this place is called Padium, the football grounds. The team is the Storks, and that's what this job was for. And all of these characters here are the ones that I submitted to my brother, and just like with the drawings, daily he would approve of what it was looking like from the computer render. So let me quickly show you what the wall was looking like that I discussed earlier. So here in these next images are going to be the wall that this artwork will go onto. So here it is. Now they're pretty rough looking walls, and what I started to do was I took my drawings, and right here you can see I put my drawings and projected them onto the wall. Not projected, but I used Photoshop for it. And now I'll show you a bit of my brother painting on a primed wall. So what he did was he had painted it all blue, as you can see. It's all done with spray paint. There's no stencils, it's all freehand. And what he is doing is translating the concept onto the wall directly, and using cutting in methods in order to keep it nice and clean and really render all of these forms very nicely into this story, this narrative of the support for the Storks team. And that's how this job ends, is with his skill and his ability. He is a professional painter. He specialises in mural artwork for a long time, and a few times we've worked together, but it's mainly been that I've animated videos that he has given me, or I have just helped with minor bits. I've not really done the preliminary sketches like he needed, you know, the design, concept design work. So that's what this job was. Now I should say that very few of the characters that I spent all that time doing actually made it into the final piece, and he did tell me that this is because he just made that decision on the fly at the end. He wanted it to be a continuous line instead of stud groups and different varying perspectives. So that was something which, if I would have known at the time, I would have done it differently. So ironically, all of that work went towards a decision that got changed towards the end, but still he said that it did contribute, and I'm sure there are a few characters that still made it into the final piece. If you can see them, leave a comment that you have spotted someone who I drew on the walls. But as you can see, that is a lovely mass of people walking into the grounds to go and support the team, and it's lovely to see the final artwork. I think it looks amazing. I always really enjoy his work. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.